and in session. The clerk will lead us in prayers.
Almighty God, we who are here gathered together, we most humbly beseech thee to guide us in all our consultations, so that we may together build a land where knowledge is free, where the mind is without fear, and the head is held high, and where words come from the depth of truth. Grant us, O God, thy need and guidance, so that we may deal justly with the several causes that come before us, laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and personal preferences, so that the result of our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion, the preservation of justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the President, and the peace and prosperity of Guyana. Grant us, O God, the vision so to lead, that all the people of this fair land may enter that state of brotherhood and unity, where the mind is led forward by thee with ever-widening thought and action.
Thank you. Members, please be seated.
Messages from the President. Announcements by the Speaker.
Honorable members, first we have addressed the issue of putting the electricals in the control panel last evening, and so we can take the AC down in the dome for more prolonged periods. I know a couple of persons have now complained about it getting hot. So, but the majority of people complain about the coldness. Just a reminder to the members of the business subcommittee of the Committee of Supply. We meet immediately as we take the suspension for lunch, and then we will ensure that you have enough time to have your own lunches. So there will most likely be a prolonged lunch period, and I'm asking if, when we hear the bell, if we can resume to the dome so that we can have prompt start when the lunch suspension is over. Sure.
Presentation of petitions. Presentation of papers and reports, etc. Reports from committees. Oral questions without notice. Questions on notice.
Honorable members, there are 3 questions on today's order paper, and these questions are for the are being asked by the Honorable Member Jermaine Figuera. I think the Honorable Member Ms. Halley, you are again going to deputize? No? No, Ms. Halley is not here. Sorry, Flu, Honorable Member. Honorable Chief Whip for the opposition, do you have someone who is deputizing to ask these questions in the name of the Honorable Jermaine Figuera?
Speaker, could we kindly ask for those questions to be deferred to tomorrow?
Thank you very much. These questions are now going to be deferred until tomorrow. Sherlock?
Statements by ministers including policy statements, personal explanations, requests for leave to move the adjournment of the National Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance, motions relating to the business or sittings of the National Assembly and moved by a minister, introduction of bills, public business, government's business.
Great, honorable members, we will now proceed with the speakers for the 2023 budget debate. And our first speaker today is the Honorable Member, Ms. Coretta MacDonald. Honorable Member, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, everyone. I stand here to make my contributions to the budget debate for 2023. But, Mr. Speaker, before I proceed to do that, I would wish to add my voice to what was said 2 days ago by the Honorable Member Priya Manik Chand, when she reminded this House that our behavior here sometimes leaves much to be desired. I would also want to say to us, and I'm sorry the member is not here, to remind us that every day young people are watching and they're listening to us. And so we shouldn't come here at convenient times to behave like Mother Teresa and Holy Marys, to come to talk about young people watching us and young people listening to us, when we ourselves are guilty of some of the foolishness. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to us that we are here to do the people's business, and we should be serious about that. The honorable member who spoke 2 days ago spoke about all the things, but that same member forgot that she stood right in this very house and called a member stupidity. We have to be careful. And so for us to begin change, change must first start with me. Mr. Speaker, as I begin my contribution here this morning, I want to say to us, Mr. Speaker, as I rise to make my contributions to this budget presentation, which came from the Minister with responsibility for finance, Dr. Ashley Singh, on Monday, January 16th. Sir, I wish to immediately move to say to us that this budget of $781.9 billion is a budget for friends, families, and favorites. This is the fourth budget of this installed regime, and it doesn't really do any good to the small man. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that while we were having the big announcement about this budget, I had some encounters with a couple of persons. And you know, persons said to me, this budget, when you ask about budget being read, which budget? They're not aware of it. They're not interested. Some said to me, this budget ain't got nothing to do with me. This budget is not for us. We will not benefit in any way from this budget. And so, Mr. Speaker, I find this very, very disheartening when you hear people talk about the budget in this manner. Mr. Speaker, I could remember when the APNU AFC government and the Honorable Minister Winston Jordan was reading his budgets, persons were tuned in to their radios. Taxi driver turned off their music and they listened. The vendors and lots of people gallied around Parliament building because they wanted to know what was happening. Mr. Speaker, those budgets presented the good life for the people of Guyana. And we can say to you, Mr. Speaker, that the Guyanese people, the Guyanese man, woman, they were real men and women because they knew that there was something there for them. Mr. Speaker, last Monday, Guyanese went about their business because they knew that the daily struggle will continue and it will become even harder. And because of that fact, they weren't interested. Mr. Speaker, I must say to us that when we come here to present budgets, our budgets passed with the interest of the Guyanese people. Our people here must be able to live a life that is comfortable. Our people here must not be saying to us that the budget is filled with illegal transactions for friends, families, and favorites. Mr. Speaker, the people on the government side, I can tell you, They don't know anything about struggle. And it's no longer a guessing game for the people out there. The people know it well. The people know about the propaganda that they're going to spread across this land. And so people are not bothered when they hear about the biggest budget. Mr. Speaker, at a glance, this budget would quickly reveal the trick. The money has been put into infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, and we know when it goes there, that's where the big, bingy, illegal party is at, where the friends and the families and all of them will enjoy it. Mr. Speaker, we have recognized that coming out of these budgets, you would see friends and families and favorites forming shell companies, and they bid for contracts, and the monies are directed to their pockets and the kickbacks to other places. Mr. Speaker, this budget is all about the PPPC and their friends, and I want you to know, you're not fooling anybody, you're fooling yourselves. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to the people out there who are listening to us, to the young people especially who are listening to us, that...
Mr. Speaker, sorry to interrupt my honorable friend. I rise on a point of order, Order 16, in relation to imputing improper motive. What the honorable member said was that contracts are given to friends and family and directed to their pockets.
I will uphold that point of order because I was waiting to see where it comes, and it came in with fooling. Fooling was the other word used about the government, your side. Fooling, not fooling anyone. Honorable member, you're now an experienced person in the House, and I'm sure you have better ways of delivering your opinion rather than imputing motive.
I'm so
we will
guided,
strike that
Mr.
from the
I'm so
record.
guided. Mr. Speaker, I must let you know that Dr. Ashley Singh has yet again fallen short and has failed to satisfy something I suspect might be the story of his life. Sir, we cannot ignore the context and the circumstance in which this budget is being presented. The context in which this debate is occurring should not be pleasing to anyone. As this nation, Mr. Speaker, grapples under the vindictive, evil, and uncaring governance of the government in office, no facet of Guyana, of life in Guyana, is safe. Mr. Speaker, the carnage is everywhere. Sir, I take no pleasure in reporting to this chamber that the people, and to the people of Guyana, that our education system is in crisis. It has fallen to the carnival of lawlessness. We have barely passed the first pandemic, and now, Mr. Speaker, we're struggling with another pandemic. Every day, children's bag, when they are being checked in schools, you're finding weapons of all sorts. Mr. Speaker, children are sitting in classrooms hungry because they don't know where their next meal is going to come from. Fights in and out of schools. Teachers, parents, students against students. Mr. Speaker, teachers are reporting for duty under stress every day. Mr. Speaker, they can't afford to pay their rent, it's too high. Teachers are left to struggle through the month with their low salaries as they watch other workers get increases. Mr. Speaker, the disrespect that has been meted out to teachers has added another layer of frustration to their plight. And I must remind this House, Mr. Speaker, that it is the very minister, the Honorable Manik Chand, who told the teachers in New Amsterdam a few years ago, when they complained about low salaries and increases, she said to them, if you don't like the job, if you don't like the monies you're getting, leave the job. Mr. Speaker, that's very caring. That's very concerned. Mr. Speaker, when we come here to talk about inclusivity, we need to turn on the other side to make sure that we are saying the right things. Mr. Speaker, the teachers in the education system can't look to the Ministry of Education for any help because the ministry has become too politicized and they're only interested in taking care of their friends, their cronies, and their favorites. Professionals, Mr. Speaker, are being sidelined and the full Peter Principle is in effect. Mr. Speaker, the most incompetent are rising to the top, and it's a fact. Mr. Speaker, this $94.4 billion that would have been allocated to education cannot solve the confusion that we're having. What we need to have, Mr. Speaker, is a clear plan that deals with inclusivity, fairness, transparency, and real love to the Guyanese people and their children directly. Mr. Speaker, this installed regime, they have not only disrespected our teachers, but their lawlessness exposed our teachers to daily dangers. Mr. Speaker, let me bring your attention to the fact of the issue we had at Queen's College not too long ago. But we come here to play Jesus and Mary's when the parent from a student at the Queen's College University, at the Queen's College school there, abused the deputy principal, abused the principal, and there was silence coming from my friends over there. And you know what is most disgusting? Is the fact that the parent was a male parent, and the deputy principal and the principal, they are females, and we heard not a sound from over there. And so it is convenient sometimes, Mr. Speaker, when we want to talk about inclusivity and caring and all of these things, but when things happen and our friends are the perpetrators, we say nothing about it. Mr. Chairman, where are we? Where are our voices when these things are happening? Mr. Speaker, in this, it is sad that this budget is being debated at this time when we experience all these problems that we're having. Mr. Speaker, when it's not the burning of the schools, it's the fighting in the schools. And Mr. Speaker, at this time, I want to publicly stand here to say we condemn the burning of schools. But you know what is more disgusting, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that these fires, these schools are being burnt every time the PPPC are sitting in government. We get fires. Mr. Speaker, it moves one to ask the question, therefore, why are we setting these fires? Why are these fires happening under the PPPC? But one would know, Mr. Speaker, that many of the lands that our schools are sitting on, they are prime lands, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to us, and I want to plead with this uncaring government, to put measures in place to stop the fires, stop our schools from being burnt. Do something to convince us that you care and that you're concerned. Because you know what? School is not a place for only education. School is also an economic zone for small vendors who operate little canteens and little stalls there. School is a place, Mr. Speaker, where there's a social network that provides for that little community. Mr. Speaker, what is even worse here is that all we hear about is an investigation is ongoing, and an investigation is ongoing. Mr. Speaker, the carnage is everywhere, and it continues. Mr. Speaker, the gangsters here don't care less as they continue to roll in their carnival of illegal transactions. Mr. Speaker, don't let me talk about the healthcare system, because we have many mothers who are crying for their daughters when we talk about maternal deaths. We have many children who are crying for their mothers. We have many husbands who are crying for their wives. And you know what we hear? An investigation is ongoing. An investigation is ongoing. And these investigations, the ongoing investigations, are never completed. Mr. Speaker, it pains my heart when you listen sometimes to children who have lost their mothers, who went into the hospitals to give birth, and then the mothers, in some cases, the mothers are dead and the baby is alive. In other cases, the babies are dead, the mother is alive, and in some cases, both are dead. And what do we see? An investigation. An investigation is ongoing. Mr. Speaker, our citizens are refusing to visit the public hospitals. Their families and friends have decided that they're going to make sacrifices to spend their monies at private services. And yet we boast of a budget that talks about 700 and whatever billion dollars. Mr. Speaker, the dark days have returned. The dark days of ghosts, phantoms, and the hired guns have returned. Guyanese are asking the question, Mr. Speaker, why are these things happening every time the PDP government is in office? Mr. Speaker, the Stavros News has declared that extrajudicial killings have become a feature of the society. In November, the newspaper pointed out, Mr. Speaker, the environment in Guyana is one where state and non-state actors feel empowered to take the lives of others, comfortable in knowing that they will bear no repercussions. Mr. Speaker, extrajudicial killings have simply become another feature of our society. Mr. Speaker, the tears of mothers are being shed from Berbice to Essequibo. In Demerara, in Berbice, Mr. Speaker, the Henry's family, they're still crying. In Berbice, Mr. Speaker, Harish Singh's family, they are still crying. In Essequibo, the Bostons are crying. Mr. Speaker, in Demerara, the Headley's family, they are sobbing. Mr. Speaker, in not too far from where we are right here at Nabakalis, the Quindon Bacchus family, they can't sleep comfortably at night. Mr. Speaker, the members on that side of the House, I want you to know that the tears of these people are on you. The tears of these people are on you. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to all of us, I want to say especially to my friends over there, the consideration of this budget, I cannot in conscience lend any support to it. It is woefully short on delivery to end the carnage and to satisfy anyone. Mr. Speaker, I take no pleasure in supporting this budget because, Mr. Speaker, Labour is in a state of disrepair, and it is the worst that we would have ever had in decades. Mr. Speaker, workers have become sacrificial lambs in an environment where the labor laws are not being enforced. Mr. Speaker, workers can't have access to labor laws, to assistance from the labor officers, because we have a labor minister who doesn't even understand what labor is, and so he cannot labor for the workers whom he seeks to represent. Mr. Speaker, our folks are suffering, our people are suffering. Every day persons are being laid off and you can't get any redress. Mr. Speaker, this budget, I must say, is anti-working class. And we therefore don't expect to see any improvement in the fiscal year that will encompass the budget. Mr. Speaker, the fundamental flaw in this budget, as it relates to labor, lies in the government's failure to understand what will be the ultimate liberation of the working class. And this liberation, Mr. Speaker, does not lie with handouts and an increase of $3,000 and $4,000 in their salaries. You have to make the real man and the woman, you have to make the small man and the small woman a real man. The only way that can be done, I must assure you, is that we must achieve, it must be done through equity. The government does not This government refused to understand that concept. Mr. Speaker, I must say to you that this budget has no poverty alleviation program for the working class. There is no affirmative action that addresses the economic disparities of workers due to historical discrimination.
Honorable member, I'll give you back your time, but I'm hearing thieving and thief. These are unparliamentary words. We can keep that for outside of the House. I'm hearing in the House. An honorable member Patterson, if you have a problem with my hearing, maybe you can recommend a good hearing aid doctor. Honorable member, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, therefore, in this regard, just like the honorable member who presented the document, I must say it falls short and fails to satisfy, again, a story of his life. Mr. Speaker, I have thoroughly examined this budget, and nowhere in this document is the word equity mentioned in any significant way. Added to the absence of this word, Mr. Speaker, there is no mention of the collective bargaining process. Workers' wages must not be subjected to the whims and fantasies of the government that decides what freck they wish to dish out here and wish to dish out there. The installed government that functions for their friends and families, Mr. Speaker, could only care less about the poor people. Mr. Speaker, the record will show that in 2016, the APNU-AFC government restored collective bargaining in this country. And sir, I feel duty-bound to remind this government that this process stems from the International Labour Convention number 151 that we have signed on to, but conveniently, we don't use that. Mr. Speaker, the convention provides for the protection of public sector citizens, the right to organize and to collective bargaining, the process of disrepute of settlements through negotiations, conciliation, mediation, and arbitration. Mr. Chairman, we must say to us that this budget ought to represent the people of this country. And sir, the Minister of Labour, insofar as he has a voice, should be reminding his cabinet colleagues that about Guyana's international treaty obligations of international labour conventions, which are baked into legislation, such as the Trade Union Recognition Act, Chapter 8907, which imposes an obligation on the union and the employer to bargain in good faith and enter negotiations with each other for the purpose of collective bargaining. However, Mr. Speaker, we understand that this goodly gentleman seems to be lost in a masquerade of his own. Mr. Speaker, there is no grand announcement by the Minister of Finance that the government plans to restore this process. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the little frecks that have been identified by this budget fail to address the macro issues that are affecting the working class. Therefore, Budget 2023 has fallen short again and cannot by any stretch of one's imagination provide any satisfaction. Mr. Speaker, this tone-deaf and vindictive government does not seem to get it right. They are rejoicing over the fact that they seemingly have made salary adjustments here and they have reduced the income tax threshold. They've increased old age pension and generally through a few measures here and there. Sir, I understand that it is difficult to explain the economic hardship of people who are receiving $1 million a month. They don't understand how it feels to cry when you don't have anything to eat. But my message today is not intended for the members who are sitting on this side of the House. who could live well and don't care about anybody else. My message here today is to explain to the Guyanese people, our young people who are listening, that despite the measures that have been placed there, it will not do anything good to change the difficulties that they are faced with. And wish to point out to them that it will not change as long as the People's Progressive Power is in power. Mr. Speaker, the IDB pegged Guyana's inflation rate at 6.6% in 2023. This means that any increases in salaries would have been zero because the inflation would have already taken that up. And so you cannot rejoice because you have no increase. What is $85,000, Mr. Speaker? When you're finished dealing with your rent of $50,000, what is left? $35,000. How do you go about living your daily life with that kind of money? Mr. Speaker, you are left with nothing much because it's no longer a light bill, but it's a heavy bill. And then you have the water bill, and then you have all the other bills to pay, which this government, Mr. Speaker, any government in their right mind would not rejoice at that effort of seeing workers receive $85,000 a month. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, there is absolutely no reason to celebrate. Mr. Speaker, the Guyanese people have seen the vindictiveness and uncaring regime in operation. There is no hope in change. Things will not get better. The oil money will never reach the pockets of the small man under this regime. There is only one hope, Mr. Speaker, and that hope is the hope that the APNU AFC stands ready to rescue this situation and to see the people of Guyana live a different life. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to this House, and I want to agree with my friends on that side, when they would have said they've done so many things. And yes, Mr. Speaker, they have done quite a lot, and they have a track record. And I must say, Mr. Speaker, that the PPP has a record of doing things for the people of Guyana. They would have resulted in huge changes in their lives, in their community. And yes, Mr. Speaker, this is their track record. Burning buildings, they've done something. Increased poverty, solved mysteries, they've done something.
But honorable member, again, you're imputing that they are burning buildings. That one to withdraw.
I beg to withdraw, Mr. Speaker, and I'm so guided by you. Mr. Speaker, rampant discrimination, something happened. Mr. Speaker, the largest cocaine haul and the narco trade that would have been returned. Mr. Speaker, blatant illegal transactions, providing for their families and favorites, those are what we get as their track record. Mr. Speaker, where could the average man receive a good life? It cannot happen under this government. In service of that interest, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Winston Jordan, as Finance Minister, presented to the House in 2015 a budget titled A Fresh Approach to the Good Life in the Green Economy. Mr. Speaker, when the Guyanese people listened, they were stimulated, growth occurred, their growth was restored, and the good life was returned. Mr. Speaker, in the next year, we had another budget presented, and it said to us, the journey of the good life continues for the fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, we cannot transform the economy and empower people under this regime. What we see under this regime, Mr. Speaker, is blatant, daring, illegal activities, more and more cocaine fines, more and more criminal activities, and Mr. Speaker, the list can go on and on and on. Mr. Speaker, I hereby call to the attention the words of Daniel Patrick Moynihan, where he says, everyone is entitled to his own opinion, but not his own facts. One can spin that narrative, Mr. Speaker, as much as you wish, but the fact remains that this budget, again, has fallen short and fails to satisfy all Guyanese. I must say, Mr. Speaker, what we have seen here is a full play on the cultural center stage, which dramatizes the life of the honorable gentleman who would have presented same. Mr. Speaker, having said that, I wish to say that I cannot support this fallen budget, which is short of satisfying the people of this country.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. And now for the contributions of the Honorable Minister of Natural Resources, the Honorable Vikram Bharat.
Plenty. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2023 is another demonstration of our commitment to the people of our country. Our commitment signing our contract with the people, that is our 5 years manifesto. And Mr. Speaker, I said 5 years manifesto, but I can understand the impatience of the opposition wanting to see more and more because of the pace at which the PPP civic government is working. Mr. Speaker, we made some serious commitments in our 2020 campaign trail. We made commitments that we are going to ensure that the new revenue stream, especially from oil and gas, and now from our carbon credits, that will be used to benefit every single Guyanese, regardless where you live, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of any other differences that may exist among us. So we are speaking, Mr. Speaker, about the people in Oriala, the people in Kokwani, the people in Northwest, the people in Arnaputa. Every single Guyanese will benefit from the People's Progressive Party civic plans, programs, and policies. Mr. Speaker, we promise transparency and accountability. And we are serious about transparency and accountability. Yesterday we heard from the Honorable Member mention about EITI. Mr. Speaker, we have ensured that we kept the same formula: government, civic society, industry. And today the MSG is as strong as ever and working with the EITI Secretariat to ensure that we prepare our third report. We cannot help it that the AFC, APNU placed in that position of director one of their members. We cannot help that. We have went through that, Mr. Speaker. So not because we don't have an executive member of the AFC at EPA or EITI means that there is no transparency. Mr. Speaker, the Natural Resource Fund Act, we promised that we are going to revise the Natural Resource Fund Act to ensure that there is proper transparency and accountability with regards to oil revenue. And we have done that. We have done that over 1 year ago to ensure that the minister does not dictate. The minister does not dictate how much money flows into the budget from the Natural Resource Fund. The minister does not make all decisions on his own like the previous NRF by the APNU AFC. Mr. Speaker, we have revised the Natural Resource Fund Act to ensure that the minister reports to Parliament within 3 years all revenue flowing into the Natural Resources Fund Act, Natural Resource Fund account. Mr. Speaker, and if the minister don't report to the National Assembly, there is a penalty of 10 years in jail. And that is accountability, Mr. Speaker. Not like the 18 million bonus, not like the 18 million bonus that was kept in secrecy for over 1 year. And only when we came to Parliament and we started to ask questions, we heard from the former finance minister that he thought it was a gift. He thought it was a gift, and that it is in a special account, in the US for money to help to fight for our territorial integrity. Mr. Speaker, up to today, there is so much secrecy surrounding that 18 million signing bonus. And today, the very members come to Parliament and boast about the PSA that they signed. So, Mr. Speaker, we are serious about transparency and accountability. That today, every single Guyanese, any ordinary Guyanese, can know how much money will flow from the Natural Resource Fund account into the national budget. And they will know how much will flow next year and the other year. That is transparency. That is accountability. Mr. Speaker, we put into that Natural Resource Fund Act that any approval of spending from the Natural Resource Fund Act must be approved by the National Assembly, and that is why we are here today. That is why we are here today, to approve the money that is flowing from the Natural Resource Fund Act into the national budget. And then next week you will have a chance to question it. Next week you will have a chance to question every single project, so you have proper insight as to where the money is flowing and what it will be spent on. Mr. Speaker, that is transparency and accountability that we promise to the people of this country. Not hiding an 80 million signing bonus. Mr. Speaker, we promise that we are going to manage the oil and gas sector in a manner that every single Guyanese will benefit. And we are serious about that, because we have been hearing over the last 3 days, and even will only benefit, or their programs will only benefit their friends, families, and I think the word now is favorites. But Mr. Speaker, I would like to add another one to that. The PPP programs and policies will benefit the friends, the families, the favorites, and our new friends. Our new friends are your supporters who are coming over to the PPP Civic now and who are supporting the PPP Civic now. Like people in Linden, like the people in Barbies who are supporting us now, they are our new friends, and they will benefit from Budget 2023 like every other Guyanese. So, Mr. Speaker, if they're saying that our friends is the 9,000 discipline services who benefit from the salary adjustment, yes, they're our friends. Mr. Speaker, if they're saying that the 5,000 health workers who will benefit from the adjustment in salary are our friends, yes, they're our friends. Mr. Speaker, if they say that the public servants who benefit from an 88% increase in salary retroactive in 2022 are friends, they are our friends. And they are benefiting further from an increase in the threshold to 85%, they are our friends, Mr. Speaker. If returning the 1 month tax-free bonus to the discipline service make them our friends, they are our friends, Mr. Speaker. If we took off tax on fuel, one of the few countries in this world, and Mr. Speaker, I did a simple Google this morning to check the price of fuel in New York City, one of the greatest cities in the world. It is almost the same price as Guyana. Almost the same price of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, we took off all taxes on fuel so that the loggers can benefit, so that the miners can benefit, so that the farmers can benefit, so that the commuters can benefit, and those are all our friends, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 214,000 school children will benefit from an increase in the cash grant in 2023. $40,000 including the uniform allowance. And those students and their parents are our friends. They are our friends, Mr. Speaker. Part-time jobs, Mr. Speaker, and a lot has been said about part-time jobs. And I just want to speak briefly on part-time jobs, because over 10,000 Guyanese are benefiting from the part-time jobs today, and they are our friends too. And Mr. Speaker, We have heard so much about the part-time jobs from the opposition, but what was your alternative in government? What did you do for the people when you were in government? Imagine we have employed over 10,000 people who are unemployed, mostly women. Mostly women. What did you do for them? Nothing. Nothing. But you come here and you talk about $40,000. $40,000 is better than nothing. We are doing that. And the part-time job was never meant to keep these people in part-time forever. It is a transition. It is a springboard. It is a stepping stone for them to at least get something now until they move on, until they get a gold scholarship and elevate themselves and acquire a better job, until they can find a job in the oil and gas sector after they're trained at the Port Morant Oil and Gas Institute. So this is just a springboard, Mr. Speaker. It is just a springboard. And to help with the increase in cost of living, I will speak on that a little later, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me just give you a quick breakdown. Because there have been a lot said that all the part-time jobs is only the PPP supporters, is only the friends and cronies are getting it. And I decided that I'm going to look at one region alone in the interest of time, my time. Thank you. And I choose Region 6 because Mr. Ramjit and the Honorable Member know that Region 6 is a predominantly PPP region. He knows that. He's from there. I'm from there too. He knows that the region is also predominantly Indo-Guyanese too. That is a fact. That is a fact. And I did a quick breakdown, Mr. Speaker. In Region 6, the population ratio of Afro-Guyanese is 21%. The population of Indo-Guyanese is 66% in Region 6. The part-time workers in Region 6 that are currently employed, Afro-Guyanese, 1,719, representing 41%. 41%, Mr. Speaker, 41%. And mind you, the Afro-Guyanese population in Region 6 is 21%. But in employ is 41%. And Indo-Guyanese, 2,239, 54%, Mr. Speaker. 54%, and the Indo-Guyanese population in Region 6 is 66%. So when you come here and you talk about racism and favoritism and cronyism, this is the facts. This is the facts, Mr. Speaker. And that is what you don't want to hear. You don't want to hear the facts. You come here and you try to distort the facts. You come here and I've listened, and most of the presenters, you came here with a hate speech. With a speech of gloom and doom. Mr. Speaker, we expected that from the opposition members. We expected that from you because you're still licking your wounds from being in the opposition. You're still licking your wounds that you only had 5 short years. The mighty AP and UFC was overthrown by the PPP city government. That was destroyed by the PPP civil government in just one term in office. In 3 years, we had a successful no confidence motion against you. So we expect you to come here with hate speeches. We expect that. We didn't expect you to come all lovey-dovey to us. Mr. Speaker, but I want to say to you that while you probably hate us, the people out there love us. The people out there love us. Go on the president's Facebook page and you will see when he's in Linden, he has a bigger crowd than the honorable opposition leader. When he is in Albistown, he has a bigger crowd than the honorable opposition leader. Go and you will see it. Go and you will see it. This is the fact, Mr. Speaker. This is the fact. This is the fact. And if we are going to do a rating, you will see that he's one of the most liked presidents in the history of our country. In the history of our country. In just a short 2.5 years. 2.5 years, he still gets 7.5 more to go. Mr. Speaker, as I continue, as I speak about family and friends and our new friends, well, we have over 70,000 senior citizens as our friends who will benefit from an increase in pension. Mr. Speaker, VAT-free on mining and logging equipment, agricultural equipment and machinery, VAT off education, medical supplies, food supplies, and the honorable member that just spoke, Mr. Speaker, spoke about the light bill and the water bill. Mr. Speaker, it takes a lot, as we say in Guyana, it takes a lot of guts to come to the National Assembly and speak about light bill and water bill when you put VAT on light and water. When you put VAT on light and water. And when we are trying to bring down the cost of electricity in this country, you are criticizing the gas to energy project every single day, and we'll hear that from my honorable friend.
Minister, if you speak to me, then I didn't put no VAT on anything. And the Honorable Schumann is in that all so I don't know he put anything on anything too.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish at this point in time to respond to a few misrepresentations. And this one here, Mr. Speaker, I consider this one as an excuse for the incompetence, as an excuse for not delivering to the people of Guyana during their term in office in 2015-2020. And Mr. Speaker, I think we have heard it from about 3 or 4 members already on the opposition side. We have heard it from the Honorable Member, Mr. Ramjatan, the Honorable Member, Shoreen Holder, and I think few other members mentioned it. Mr. Speaker, the new excuse to the people of this country is that they didn't have oil and gas money when they were in government. They didn't have oil and gas money when they were in government. So that is their new excuse to the people of this country. Oh, we couldn't do that because we didn't have oil and gas money. Or the PUP can do that now because they have new revenue coming in. Mr. Speaker, may I remind this House that from 1992 to 2015, we didn't have no oil and gas money. We didn't have no oil and gas money, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the very member, the Honorable Ramjatan was part of the PUP in 1992. So he knew the state of this country when we took it over. When Comrade Chedi took it over as president, he was part of the PUP. So he knew the state, and he knew what we did. He knew what we did over those 23 years with limited resources, prudent management, and prioritizing our developmental projects to ensure that Guyana is what it is today. To ensure that Guyana is what it is today. And I say that because after 2015, we have not seen any progress up to 2020, Mr. Speaker. And the progress that we have seen over the last 2 years, Mr. Speaker, the oil money and start spending really yet. It is this year budget that you will see more oil money going into the budget. Mr. Speaker, for the record, Mr. Speaker, in 2015, $221 billion. 2016, $230 billion. 2017, $250 billion. 2018, $267 billion. 2019, $300 billion. 2020, $329 billion, most of which was spent by the AP and UAFC after they lost the election and refused to come out of office. Mr. Speaker, that total almost $1.5 trillion. $1.5 trillion the AP and UFC spent. And what do we have? What do you have to show for it? What do you have to show for it? Where can we point us in the direction? Point us in the direction where we can go and see your achievement. Point, please. Can we go to the monument in Madhya? Can we go to the Durban Park? Where can we go to see one single project? One single project that the AP and UAFC spent $1.5 trillion. But Mr. Speaker, you know, the money went, Mr. Speaker, the money went to traveling, we say, as we say in Barbies, the Honorable know, as we say in Barbies, traveling with your Barriat, traveling with your Nami, traveling with your Barriat. Mr. Speaker, stop the cash grant And they start buying more food and refreshment, the AP and UFC. Start buying more food and refreshments for themselves. Fancy vehicles, fancy offices. And still they sent home over 7,000 sugar workers. Sent home over 2,000 CSOs. Sent home a number of public servants, and they're saying that today. And the capital budget decreases every single year. Mr. Speaker, if they're claiming that oil and gas is the only revenue now, Mr. Speaker, in 2015 to 2020, the AP and UAFC killed almost every single productive sector in this country. Almost every single productive sector in this country. An honorable member, Mr. Speaker, I would know. The Ministry of Natural Resources manages most of the productive sectors. Where was agriculture? Where was agriculture under the AP and UAFC? Where was agriculture under the AP and UAFC? It's a racist private business. It's a racist private business. Mr. Speaker, what did they do to bauxite? Honorable Member Sears spoke, and we talked about this beer face thing, spoke about Rusal, that the government is not engaging Rusal to reopen. But may I remind the honorable member, Mr. Speaker, they closed down Manchur, they pushed Rusal out of operation. The AP and UAFC pushed Rusal out of operation, putting over 500 persons in the Kokwani Aichuni area out of jobs, and another 100 in New Amsterdam who was working with the oil and gas transshipment point at the mouth of Bobby's River. Over 600 workers, and most of them are their supporters, Mr. Speaker. Most of them are their supporters. And then today they come war because there were new friends now. Because there were new friends now. And if we can talk, I see my honorable friend, Mr. Speaker, Ricky, is smiling because he knows that I'm coming to the forestry sector. The forestry sector, Mr. Speaker, when we left in 2015, was a viable sector. It was one of the best managed sectors in 2015, bringing in revenue, export revenue to this country. When we took over in August 2020, Mr. Speaker, it was bankrupt. It was bankrupt. And Mr. Speaker, they owed utility bills. They owed salaries to serve for 2 months when we took over. Mr. Speaker, we are still trying to bring back the Forestry Commission to what it was before. And we have seen that this year with an increase of 13.4%, 13.4% growth rate in the forestry sector this year, Mr. Speaker. 13.4% increase in this year. Mr. Speaker, the 13.5% growth rate, it equates to over 50,000 cubic meter increase in production. 50,000 at a value of 2 billion Guyana dollars. That is what the forestry sector is doing today. And you destroyed, the AP and UFC government destroyed the forestry sector, Mr. Speaker. And if I may come to GGMC, Mr. Speaker, a quick look at GGMC. When we left, and this is in the records, I can hand it over to you, Mr. Speaker. When we left in 2015, in the accounts of GGMC, there was over $24 billion. A lot of people don't know this. There was over $24 billion. Mr. Speaker, when we took over by government in August of 2020, there was $11 billion. $11 billion. And the honorable member is saying we have to use $13 billion plus the revenue coming in for the 5 years. Plus the revenue coming in for the 5 years. The gold board is in overdraft, was in overdraft. The gold board was in billions of overdraft. Billions of overdraft, Mr. Speaker. That is their legacy. That is their legacy, Mr. Speaker. That is their legacy, Mr. Speaker. And today they come here with the excuse, we did not oil revenue. But if you don't have oil revenue, you have to incentivize the other productive sectors, like we are doing now. You have to grow the other productive sectors. Bauxite increased by 35%, diamonds by 85%, forestry by 34%, aggregates by 12%, sun by 100 and something %. You have to incentivize and grow the other productive sectors, but what did you do? You did the opposite. And today you come here crying crocodile tears crocodile tears. Oh, we didn't have oil and gas money. We didn't have carbon credits money. Mr. Speaker, in the interest of time, I'll move on to another sore point that the opposition keep mentioning over, the AP and UFC keep mentioning over and over, and that is cost of living. And the way in which is mentioned in this National Assembly is as this is inflicted upon the people of Guyana by the government of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, there is a global crisis. There is a global crisis. Apparently the APNU-AFC is still in that balloon. The APNU-AFC is still locked in the balloon that they don't know what is happening outside of them. Mr. Speaker, we are witnessing a severe shortages of basic commodities around the world. We are happy. We should be happy, as a matter of fact, that we still have in Guyana. When many countries there are severe shortages, we are seeing the economic impact of COVID now, and the war did not help. The war did not help. And it is very strange that I should be a learned member of this National Assembly speaking about Bora and Baigan. Mr. Speaker, what the farmers them got? They got to get fertilizer, Mr. Speaker. Where the fertilizer come from, Honorable Mr. Speaker? It comes from gas. They got to use fuel to drive it to the market. The war carry up oil and gas price, we know that. The fishermen that use fuel to go out in the sea to catch the fishes. So, oh man, how can you come to the assembly and ask about Baigan and Bora for a catfish for us? Mr. Speaker, this is the exact attitude why the people of this country has condemned the AP and UFC into the opposition. And they will stay there for a long time because apparently it hasn't been reformed, or apparently they're still stuck in the balloon, the cocoon. Mr. Speaker, and they criticize the part-time job is a way of cushioning it. They criticize the cash grants that we give. That is a form of cushioning it. When many countries cannot do that, we are doing it in this small developing country. Cash grant to children, the pensioners, the children with disabilities, the sugar workers, the fishermen, the farmers, flood relief for household, COVID cash grant, hinterland grants. We did that to cushion the cost of living, Mr. Speaker. When many countries couldn't do it, we did it. When many countries can afford to remove tax off fuel, we did it in this country. For our people, for every single Guyanese, our friends, our families, our favorites, and our new friends, which is all of Guyana, And Mr. Speaker, we heard about reckless spending on capital projects, and illegal transactions. Mr. Speaker, let them point us to one capital project that they did in their 5 years after spending $1.5 trillion Guyana. Let them point us to one. Durban Park, we can go to Durban Park and see the state of Durban Park. And then today they talk about reckless spending. You continue projects from us. They talk about reckless spending on capital project. Mr. Speaker, how can you tell the people who have to commute the Demerara Harbour Bridge every single day, spending over 1 hour, that spending money on a new Demerara Harbour Bridge is reckless? Mr. Speaker, how can you say to the Northwest residents that bringing a new ferry is reckless? How can you say to the Region 3 people that a new highway in Region 3 is reckless? How can you say to the people on the East Bank that the new East Bank, the 2 new highways on the East Bank, is reckless spending? How can you say to the people of this country when they travel through that airport now that was reckless spending? Mr. Speaker, how can you say to the people of this country that building 5 new hospitals is reckless spending? Building a specialty hospital for children and mother is reckless spending? Mr. Speaker, how can you say to the people of Berbice building a highway or improving the highway from New Amsterdam to Molson Creek is reckless spending? How can you say to the people in Linden that recapping and expanding the Linden-Suzaik Highway is reckless spending? How can you say to our people in Region 9 that building the Linden to Mugura Highway is reckless spending? How can you say to the people in Guyana that building a refinery in Guyana is reckless spending? How can you say to the people in Guyana that the NGL plant that we will bring, that bill that will bring down the cost of cooking gas is reckless spending, Mr. Speaker? The only reckless thing that we have here is the opposition, the AP and UAFC, Mr. Speaker. That is the only recklessness that we have here in this country. The AP and UAFC with their reckless statements, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable MP, Ms. MacDonald, spoke glowingly about education. Maybe the Honorable member should spend a little more time in ensuring that you work with the system to ensure that we improve it. Because educating our young population in this country, it is not a task of the government alone. It is the task of all of us in this National Assembly, because all of us are leaders in this country. Just like how the education process is the parents, the teachers, and the students, we have a responsibility to the children of this country. We, all of us here. So when you come here and you hold senior position and you criticize the education system, in reality you're criticizing yourself too. You're criticizing yourself too. And Mr. Speaker, two misrepresentation was mentioned by the Honorable Member with regards to the Minister of Education. One, the Minister of Education went to New Amsterdam and tell teachers that if they don't accept the salary, they can leave the job. Mr. Speaker, I'll hand it over to you from Kaichor News. Kaichor News offer an apology to the Minister for misquoting her, And further, Mr. Speaker, I'll hand it over to you, Mr. Speaker. The Deputy Head of QC wrote and said that she is no longer pursuing the matter because it was misrepresented as well. And Mr. Speaker, I have those letters that I will lay over to you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister, stay on track and not misrepresenting anything. You have to get an extension to conclude.
Mr. Speaker, I would love my colleague to continue speaking for a long, long time, but I do ask for an extension for him to conclude his presentation, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Minister Teixeira. Honourable Minister Vikram Bharat, you have 5 minutes to conclude your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will now deal with the oil and gas sector, because there have been so much said about the oil and gas sector by so many members in the National Assembly. But Mr. Speaker, let me remind this House that the exploration contract signed between the government of Guyana and ExxonMobil was signed in 1999 by the then President Janet Jagan. Mr. Speaker, from then we moved to forest oil in December of 2019. Since then, we have moved our second FPSO, producing on average 380,000 barrels per day. And we are well on course, Mr. Speaker, to achieve the 1 million target in another 4 to 5 years from today. Already we have issued, or we have approved the Yellowtail production license, which will see another 250,000 barrels added to our production figures. And we are presently with our international consultant reviewing the Waru project. And once we are satisfied, a petroleum production license will be issued, taking our production to over 850,000 barrels per day. And already there are indications that the Whiptail development will be our 5th development coming on stream at least by 2027, 2028, which will take our production to over 1 million barrels per day, Mr. Speaker. Unprecedented. Has never happened in this world anywhere. And Mr. Speaker, we are blessed as a country, all of us, because we are all Guyanese. We live in a blessed country. We have natural resources, but we have the best of the natural resources. Our crude is the best crude. Our gold is the best gold. Our bauxite is the best. And our forest is our national treasure. Our forest is our national treasure. Mr. Speaker, we are blessed that 86% of Guyana is covered in forests. We are blessed that 90% of our forest is virgin forest still standing. We are blessed that we can earn a minimum of $750 million US from 30% of our carbon credits only. And that is why I say we are a blessed country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in 2023, we will continue to improve on our local content legislation. Mr. Speaker, I sat in the last parliament from 2016, and I have heard so much talk from the government of the day then about forest oil. But what was done? What framework was in place to manage the sector? The NRF that gives the minister all the power to determine how to spend the money, a local content policy presented in January of 2020, which is in favor of the international company, not local company. And in 1 year, Mr. Speaker, we moved towards having a local content legislation in place. And today we have seen over 600 Guyanese companies, registered with the local content secretariat, bringing in over $700 million in 2022. Getting the oil companies to unbundle their services so that Guyanese can participate in it. Reducing the payment period from 60 days to 45 days, we would have achieved that in 1 year, Mr. Speaker. In 1 year. And we made a promise that in 2023, we are going to reassess our capacity, human capacity and our capacity in the private sector in order to amend Schedule 1 in the local content legislation and to add services to those 40 that already exist, and to increase the targets that are already there in those 40. But it is based on our capacity. It is based, of course, we will hold consultations to ensure that is done. Mr. Speaker, we have heard so much about the environment and what needs to be done. But Mr. Speaker, when the leaser license was issued, the 25-page leaser license was issued, 1, it was never made public. 2, there was no provision for flaring in it. There was no provision as to how you deal with wastewater in Leaser 1 permit. And as a matter of fact, the APNU AFC issued a 20 years environmental permit, which is illegal. And the Attorney General went to court to ensure that we correct your wrong and issue a 5-year permit, because you need to do reassessment and studies to ensure that you can issue a further license. Mr. Speaker, in 2020, and they speak about oil spill, but what was done as preventative measures to oil spill? We have a cap and stock in Yellowtail license. We have training by the CDC ongoing. We have real-time monitoring on the FPSO. We have presence of GNBS staff on the FPSO today, Mr. Speaker. And we will continue to work to ensure that we strengthen the oil and gas sector so that there is proper accountability and transparency, and that the monies from the oil and gas sector will be used to ensure that every single Guyanese benefits. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I wish to thank my staff from the Ministry of Natural Resources. Some of them are here, who have worked overtime to ensure that we are at this juncture. And I wish to thank in particular the Minister of Finance, Senior Minister in the Office of President responsibility for Finance, Director of Budget, and the hard-working staff of the Ministry of Finance, who work tirelessly to ensure that we craft a comprehensive budget that will benefit every single Guyanese. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member, Mr. David Patterson. Honourable Member, you may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, colleagues, as is customary, I rise to make my contribution to Budget 23. Allow me to extend thanks to the committed but underpaid public servants for the hard work in the preparation of the budget. The nation is aware and will not fault our public servants for the contents in this budget, which is not fit to be associated with one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2013 is simply a numbers budget. The PPP has a huge amount of money at their disposal, so they simply cobbled together some projects and announced the country's largest ever budget. There are no policy statements in the budget. There's no planning or vision. Most, if not all, of the capital projects included were conceptualized, designed under the coalition government, but they shamelessly, sir, seek to take credit for.
You're going to withdraw that shamelessly.
Sir, before I proceed, sir, I'd like to address a few issues, sir. And Mr. Speaker, you know, like you, I have an aversion to paper. I normally like to have everything electronically, sir. But because we are ruling so far, sir, I've walked with all the supporting documents, everything I make, sir, and I'll make all available to the Parliament on my completion. And I hope, sir, that you don't have to interrupt me to ask for source, because there's all here. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to address an issue that the government keeps repeating, that the life and death of the Myla Falls project, sir, this project, sir, was mentioned in all four of the government's budgets. However, it's no closer to commencement, with all efforts thus far falling short. It is time that the record is set straight once and for all. Not for the members on that other side, sir, they don't care, but for the younger MPs on my side of the House, sir, and the general public. Mr. Speaker, here are some facts, and I am running through the facts very quickly. April, we're coming to that, sir. April of 1998, the PPP signed the MOU with Synergy Holding, headed by Mr. Phip Mopilal, sir, I hope I could use his name, to undertake feasibility studies in the Myla Falls, sir. He produced, sir, a report in December 2001 and requested the issuance of a license. In July 2002, an interim license to Synergy Holding was issued, despite an adverse report on the soundness of the project from their own consultants, sir, in July 2002. Sir, one of your consultants, Keen Consulting Inc., if you want to know, sir. So let's fast forward to 2009. Sir, in 2009, Synergy Holding transferred the interim license to Site Global. In March 2010, the PPP received 4 bids for the access road, so I'm not quickly going through, and they awarded a contract to Synergy Holding for the access road for $15.4 million, even though that company had no previous experience in road building, sir. Mr. Speaker, the PPP's consultants, sir, and you're not allowed to mention names, but if they force me, I will, indicated, and I quote, sir, that the appropriate process was not followed, as the evaluation was at best a qualitative assessment with too many unknowns, as the recommendation cannot stand scrutiny, sir. That's the recommendation to appoint Synergy Holding. Sir, but they proceeded, nevertheless, sir, to award the contract. Of course, the Synergy Holding contract was terminated in July 2012, having only completed 30% of the work, sir. That road ended up costing Guyanese taxpayers by the end of 2015, when we came to power, $45 million US, sir. $30 million US more. Reckless spending, sir. Sir, we're talking about this shortly. Sir, the IDB in September 2012 issued a mandate letter. However, it was subject to certain caveats, mainly the financial and technical viability of it. Sir, you must note, sir, whatever they tell you, it was never ever approved by the IDB board. All the IDB agreed to do, sir, was help them find financing. The IDB indicated that they were unwilling to put any money into the project. So the World Bank was approached and they flatly refused to fund the project. Maybe, sir, that is why the World Bank was booted out, sir, in 2012. Move forward, sir, to April of 2013, the minister's quiet. Sir, the National Assembly, sir, approved two bill schemes. The Hydroelectric Amendment Bill was approved by the National Assembly, the opposition, sir. And a motion, sir, to raise the debt ceiling to 130 billion was reduced to 150 billion. With a caveat, sir, when you sort out all the deficiencies in the project, you can come back to us, and the National Assembly, sir, will increase the debt ceiling. We never, sir, whatever they say, we never, sir, voted down them. We reduced it. Prudent spending, sir. Sir, of course, we know that Cyglobal withdrew. Sir, I would like to move forward to July of 2015. Sir, this is where it gets interesting, sir. A review of the product was conducted, sir, by the new administration. Information, sir, once deemed too confidential, sir. They had 3 meetings with the opposition, but there was some information that was deemed too confidential to be provided to the opposition, sir. Had to be laid over. Sir, when they met with the opposition, they told us that it would be $858 million US. And at the time, sir, they went around and the PR was saying it. And you know that, sir, you were there. 10 cents US, 10 cents US per kilowatt hours. That was what they were telling everybody. But guess what, sir? When they shared the information with us, sir, the tariff had risen to 25 cents US when we got it. 25 US cents dollars, sir. What we're paying right now, what we're paying now, sir. And sir, they moved, and it's all here, sir. It's all here. And I can quote, sir, and they moved from saying it is a project to save energy and to get cheap electricity, and they described it now as a flagship for low carbon development strategy to reduce emissions. It's no longer about, sir, electricity costs. Sir, that's on the end of the issue, sir. We discovered, sir, in addition to the $558 million that they said, sir, we had the government again had to put 138 million capex for GPL. Sir, see the ministers there. Capex for GPL, sir, that's the GPL cost, sir, for the transmission, to make it available to distribution and transmission. $40 million, sir, US dollars, to buy down the equity of the sponsor, sir, and $3 million US. $3 million US for the relocation of 30 persons. So when we did the competition, sir, the project, this flagship cheap Amila project that they came up, sir, the tariff ended up at 30 cents US. That, sir, is why the project is dead. Sir, and I will go to what their rebuttal will be, sir, North Construct. Sir, the Ministry of Finance, Norway, and Natural Resources conducted a review of the project, and they employed a consultant, North Consult, sir. North Consult said it was the most viable project. They said that Myla Falls was prioritized as the first hydro plant because it was the only one with a full feasibility study. Because for the PPP, it was a Myla or nothing. Just, sir, we have the got through nothing. But I'll come to that, sir. However, in 2018, the Ministry of Climate and Environment of Norway sent a delegation to Guyana. And they met with the government of Guyana and the IDB. So it is concerning the $80 million that was in the fund. The Norm Region team came with the belief, as the PPP were shouting and telling them, that the Amaila Falls was the only option. The government of Guyana presented our proposed transitional energy plan. The Norwegian team visited various locations, held discussions with stakeholders. So it was a 4-day visit. And at the start of the third day of the visit, the team leader announced that they had an epiphany. They discarded any idea of funding the Amaila Falls project, and they fully endorsed the APNU's AFC Energy Transition Plan, sir. Mr. Speaker, the AFC plus APNU plans was to utilize the $80 million for 30 megawatt solar farm with 8-hour storage. Despite the efforts of the PPP, sir, they begged, they pleaded, they threatened. The government of Norway has refused to allow the money to go back to the Amaila Falls project. And the project, sir, included in this budget document, is what they are now boasting about. Sir, the Amaila Falls project, for the records, was not killed by the opposition. Far from it. It was stillborn. It died from malnutrition, sir. A lack of financial and technical substance, as well, sir, as bad parents. Mr. Speaker, having resolved this issue and demonstrated that the PPP are incapable of conceptualizing and successfully executing any major project, but are good at blaming others for the failures, allow me to address a few things in Budget 2023. Public Works, sir. The Honorable Minister of Public Works in his presentation regaled the House on the size of his budget for miscellaneous and urban roads, made light of the money available, sir, to the then Ministry of Public Infrastructure, as opposed to what he has in its details. We, on the side of the House, rarely acknowledge the huge amount of money available for the APM based on the production agreements, or the one that they criticize, signed by the APNU AFC government. Sir, as always, sir, the devil has always been in the details. And let me give you some details, sir. Special Projects Unit, sir. It was a coalition government that established the Special Projects Unit. Sir, in 2015, when we assumed office, there was something called a Force Accounting Unit, sir, and all that was there to do. It was under the direction of the Permanent Secretary, and it was there to provide general emergency work. Patch a hole here, patch a hole there, fix a plumbing leak, repair a leaking work. So the creation of SPU, sir, was done under the leadership of Honorable Annette Ferguson there. In 2015, in 2016, 2017, and 2018, the coalition government purchased over $450 million worth of material every year, increased the staffing twofold with engineers and semi-skilled workers and unskilled workers, and placed it under the direction of the Work Services Group. And that, sir, is what made it what it is today. Sir, but here is the crook, sir. The minister announced that the SPU completed several kilometers of work, sir. He regaled us between 2022. But let us look at the coalition record for it, which had 1/5 of his budget, sir. Sir, in the minister announced in 2020, sir, they did, 300 kilometers of work repair. 2021, 420. 2022, there's the SPU, sir, 520. Sir, with 1/5 of the money. 1/5 of the money, sir. In 2010, 2017, sir, SPU did 410 kilometers, sir. More than they did with the amount to double the money. With In 2018, sir, we did 450 kilometers work. Sir, it's all here for the thing. Sir, just for the records, I left this entire thing on the minister's desk, which, you know, you don't have to, it was on his desk. Sir, and in 2019, sir, you can check it yourself, sir, we did 450 kilometers of maintenance SBU, sir. Less money, more work with a better quality, excellent value for money. Mr. Speaker, the minister boasted about the sums of money expended by the PPP on sea defenses. The Honorable Minister announced that since coming to office, his ministry, sir, completed 5.4 kilometers of new work, rehabilitated 1 kilometer of sea defense, and maintained 81 kilometers of sea defense, sir. But this was done to loud applause, sir, his colleagues. Once again, the devil is in the details, sir. But let us compare the APNU, AFC's government 2017 to 2019 track record. Without any other money, with 50th budget, sir, we did 13.8 kilometers of new work, 50.3 kilometers of rehabilitation work, sir, and 253 kilometers of maintenance work. Chalk to cheese, sir. Value for money and prudent spending. No kickback for the boys. And for added measure, sir, we also completed the Supernam waterfront development, sir. The PPP never had such vision. We did so much more with so much less, and to a higher standard, sir. Now I would like to move on to urban roads. Same thing, regaled us with what he did. Sir, this is what the PPP did in urban roads, sir, but 5 times the budget of the APNU. 2020, 6.4 kilometers. 2021, 3.6 kilometers. 2022, 18.3 kilometers. Sir, here is what the coalition did, sir, in 2017. 20.22 kilometers in 2017. 21.1 kilometers in 2018. Sir, of course, we fell down in 2016, sir. We did 16.6. Sir, in the 3 years, 2017 to 2019, sir, it's all here. The coalition administration completed 58 kilometers of road works in urban areas. Compared to the 3 years of the PPP, sir, with all the money they have, they've only done 28.13, sir. How is that, Minister, for lethargic and do little state? Mr. Speaker, one might be wondering why such a lethargic approach to urban centers by the PPP. However, one must just look at the voting patterns in urban areas to understand why the citizens are not being served efficiently, sir, in this biggest ever budget. So we go to miscellaneous roads. And he said, sir, the minister said that in the 5 years, sir, in the 5 years of the APNU, the coalition only had 8.54 billion, correct, as opposed to his 45 billion, and he was like triumphant. Sir, I admit, they did more than us, but we, sir, as I said, the devil's in the details. Sir, in 2020, in miscellaneous road, they did 80 kilometers, that's according to the minister. 2021, 117. In 2022, 219. Sir, with 1/5 budget, here what we did. In 2017, 32 kilometers. 2018, 60 kilometers. 2019, 72 kilometers. Sir, but when you look at it, the coalition from 2017 to 2019 did 165 kilometers of road. Sir, and that cost the people of Guyana $46 million per kilometer. Sir, the PPP have done, sir, the PPP has done 562 kilometers, sir, at double the cost. $92 million per kilometer. More than double the cost with half the quality. One can only wonder where the extra money is going. Mr. Speaker, what makes it worse, sir? what makes it worse, in 2022, sir, of the 290 kilometers of road, they said, sir, as minister, as here, sir, only 55 kilometers were actually.
You're getting back your time. You're getting back your time. I hear shouts of stupid and are you stupid? The word is on parliamentary. I think Chief Whip's gonna contain their people.
Mr. Speaker, this ministry can't even spend the money allocated for funds. Money, sir, sir, for friends, family, and favorites. And I said, sir, as I said in 2020 budget, the boys, sir, are back in town. Interestingly, sir, one would have thought with such a great increase of money for roads in this ministry that you would have a accompanying increase in staff. Sir, if you look at the staffing details, sir, sir, the technical and the semi-technical people are bolting. This is not well, sir. All is not well in the land of the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. Sir, we will come to that, sir. I think about 44 persons that bolted, sir. They can't work under the ministers. Mr. Speaker, that may explain why it took the ministry 8 months and a personal visit by the minister to discover that a contractor, after collecting $22 million advance, never one day turned up for work. Of course, we're not surprised to learn that the contractor is a family of, sir, of one of the ministers. Mr. Speaker, this ministry should be named family and favorites. Since every friend, family, and favorite has been awarded multi-billion-dollar contracts, no matter your experience, sir. In 2020, if you are a race car driver, no worries. You will be awarded a contract under the new Ministry of Friends, Families, and Favorites. If you are dealing gold and metals, no worry. You'll be awarded a contract under the Ministry of Friends, Family, and Favorites. In 2020, sir, if you were a joker on social media, no worries. You'll be awarded a contract under this ministry. In 2020, promoter, you would have been awarded, you will be awarded a contract under this ministry. If your son, daughter, wife, never built a road before, no worries. You'll be awarded a contract under the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, I put this time permits I come back there. Sir, Mr. Speaker, I want to go to transport and harbors. Sir, the Honorable Minister in his presentation provided a report on the achievements of transport and harbors. He indicated that all their liabilities have been cleared. On behalf of the staff of the Transport and Harbors, I'd like to commend the government for their actions. However, what the minister did not say, sir, is that the PPP are clearing up the mess that they created, sir. And here are the liabilities of Transport and Harbors, sir, at the end of 2012, sir, 188.7 million, that's the liabilities deficit. At the end of 2013, this here, sir, you have a copy of it if you want it. At the end of 2013, sir, $296.3 million. That's what it is. So at the end of 2014, $258.6 million in deficit, sir. At the end of 2015, it was in the whole, sir. You don't worry. The $195.4 billion, sir, in the red. Sir, at the end of 2015, sir, at the end of 2015, it's all here. Transport and Harbors, sir, Transport and Harbors own NIS, $31.6 billion. And GRA, sir, $78.5 million. Sir, but it doesn't end there, sir. The coalition government took measures to reduce that, sir. At the end, sir, and I move on, so at the end of 2019, the arrears was only $80 million. Sir, the $390 million that the honorable member, sir, paid off was all down to his incompetence, all down to his mismanagement, sir. And they come and they want to be applauded, sir, for clearing up the doo-doo they created, sir. Sir, let us speak about dry docking of vessels, sir, and he made a thing, sir, under the coalition, MV Barima, Kimbia, Sandaka, Koala, Sabanto, Maruka, Lady Lord Court, Malali, MV Paraki, were all dry docked and renovated. Sir, we even took out the MV Kimbia, which was languishing for 3 years before we got there, sir, and put it back into operation. Sir, that sir, is the records. Sir, going on, sir, the speaker went on to talk about the Linden to Mabura Road, sir, and we're pleased for the 116 persons, he said, sir, that have been employed. We are pleased. Sir, but the employment has absolutely nothing to do with the PPP, sir. This project was executed and designed, packaged and financed by the APNU AFC administration. Lock, stock and barrel. Sir, even worse, sir, when the vice president was the leader of the opposition, sir, met with DFID, sir, in 2019, he reported to them, sir, that he will squash this project when they come to power. And thankfully, like our Norwegians called counterpart, the British government said, if you squash it, we will take our money. Sir, that is why that 116 persons, sir, are...
But I will have to ask you to provide that evidence, or else it's imputing. Okay.
Sir, I love the rap to continue me. Normally I get lots of heckles. Sir, the Wismont, the Kubukari Bridge. Sir, these designs for these bridges have been completed since 2019. Public consultations held with the persons, Iroquois, the citizens of Region 10, Region 8, who give their input and their blessings. Sir, it hasn't started yet. Sir, even more, sir, the Honorable Minister, sir, was proud to announce that the PPP are building new offices to house 6,000 person workers away from the city to ease the congestion. What he did not say, sir, nowhere in the PPP manifesto, nowhere in any document ever produced or can be produced, sir, prior to now, that this project was ever there. Sir, where they got this project from, sir? The coalitions, sir, 2017, so they didn't even have a developmental program. 2017 to 2025, sir, developmental plan. Here it is. Here it is, sir. Entire new, sir, they didn't even change. They didn't even change the location, sir. They didn't have the vision of the thing, but it's right here, sir. And I challenge them, they have them to come and speak about it. We did it since 2016. Sir, they have the money, all they did is pull out our program, sir. Mr. Speaker, time is going, sir. I move on to energy quickly. Sir, the coalition presented a comprehensive energy diversification blueprint, sir. We left that in place, sir. The PPP has slavishly been following this plan and, sir, trying to take credit. All except, sir, the remodel gas to shore project every single one of the energy projects has been conceptualized, designed, packaged with funding by the APNUAFC administration. Sir, the 1.5 hydro facility at Kumu and the 700 kilowatts rehabilitation of the Mokomoko, mentioned in the budget, fully conceptualized, designed, funded, secured, sir, by the APNU. Sir, the 1.5 solar farm in Bartica, the 0.75 farm in Wakenham, the solar farms in Letham, Madia, Linden, as well as the solar at Mabaroom, as well as solar panels for the interland community. All, sir, all were fully conceptualized, designed, including funding, sir, by the coalition. Sir, the truth is, sir, and it's all here, the truth is, the PPP are visionless. They have no useful or progressive ideas. Sir, but like parasites, sir, they exist and they extract from others, other people's visions and energies, sir. Sir, the coalition administration, sir, owner, what's the word? Owner. The coalition administration included, sir, I must admit, a gas to shore project in our energy expansion and diversification project blueprint. Our proposal was to construct a 20 megawatt natural gas powered plant connected with the SPSO, sir, with a 12-inch diameter pipe, also including an LPG plant. All, sir, all of this for the total cost of $700 million, sir. Our proposal included every single aspect of the PPP's Wales Gas to Shore project, but at 25% of the cost.
Honorable member, you will need an extension to conclude.
Thank you. Thank you, Comrade Speaker. Comrade Speaker, I do move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable member, you may continue to conclude.
Sir, I think, sir, time flies when you're having fun. Sir, the same operator who will be constructing the pipeline for the PPP, sir, was constructing it for her. The same size of pipe, sir. The pipeline remains the same. The size of the LPG plant remains the same. Sir, the only difference is the location and the PPP. These two factors combined, sir, has added an additional $2 billion and counting to this project, sir. Sir, in similar fashion to the Myla Falls, sir, the PPP has announced when completed, sir, the reason why I went through it is to let the people know what they announced, facts versus reality. And they have announced that the project will produce power at 20 cents, or 5 US cents when completed, sir. Sir, but they've excluded, sir, to mention certain costs, land acquisition costs, sir. They didn't put that on. They only, as always, they only use half the equation, sir. GPL, sir, I just told you the capex for GPL for a Myla Falls, $134 million US. So they haven't included that in the computation. Sir, they haven't included the cost for redundancy, sir. Every year, the pipeline has to be done for 3 to 4 days for maintenance. Sir, the country has to keep powered, sir. How will this power, how will the country be powered, sir? Sir, you have to include the redundancy cost, but they didn't throw that in the competition. Sir, just like a Myla when it said 10 US cents, that's transmission lines across. How are you going to get it across the Demerara River, sir? No one has mentioned that, sir. Oil spill plans, waste management plans, gas leaks, gas dispersal. Yes, sir. Before me, sir, with me, sir. And sir, of concern, sir, I love the silence and I appreciate, sir, the adoration. Sir, of concern to us in the opposition is that the announcement that Guyana is expected to receive 17 lifts in 2023. Sir, in 2018, the government of the ExxonMobil, sir, presented to the government of Guyana the cash flow analysis which stated that the cost for the production of the SPSO and other associated costs for LISO 1, sir, was pegged at $1.2 billion, sir. And after this cost would have been recovered, Guyana's share of the profit oil would be 50-50. At 70 US cents per barrel, producing 120,000 barrels per day. Sir, they have now increased that by 20,000 barrels a day, sir, without even telling anyone. Sir, so they're producing 140,000 barrels a day, sir. The average price of a barrel of oil, which is 60% increase, average price now between 2020. Sir, as I should mention in this projection, which you will get, sir, so don't need to ask. Sir, the full payback, sir, right here. Sir, they're producing a 16% more, sir, which obviously at a higher baseline that they were projected. Sir, we're supposed to now, sir, I expected now, by now, we would have been in the cost recovery 50-50 stage, sir. Yep. Sir, the government has failed to even, the minister has failed to even address that. Sir, they haven't even addressed, sir, the audits. Sir, it is our contention, sir. It is our consensus, sir, that by now, the cost for LISO 1 should have been fully recovered and the Exxon should have fully recovered their production investment. Sir, the country, sir, by now supposed to be enjoying 50-50 profit share on profit oil, sir. Sir, if this is not the case as it is now, sir, the government should inform the House on the status of oil recovery and cost oil for LISO 1. And when, sir, when are we expected to commence full equitable share on this project? Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, yes, sir. The opposition will support the government, sir, in any issue defining constitutional reform provisions that will result in a bipartisan approach to address our national challenges and opportunities. We will support, sir, new systems of government which will facilitate an equitable distribution of our national patrimony. That's right. We will support any budget that does this, that does not only look good on paper, but can actually input and raise the standard of living of our people in a real and tangible way. Unfortunately, sir, Budget 2023 falls short of these modest measures and cannot gain our support in the current format. I thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member Patterson. I've had a request to have the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs. So we are going to have the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs, Honorable Brinley Horatio Ben, make his contribution. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and honorable members. Mr. Speaker, I want to first off congratulate the Honorable Minister Ashley Singh, Minister of Finance, who has again exceeded all expectations, in bringing a national budget to this honorable House, which will clear the pathway for more and rapid development of our country. Exceeded himself, and I want to thank his staff and all the other persons in the ministries, including mine, who have facilitated this budget and its presentation. Mr. Speaker, again, as was the last time, it is exceedingly disappointing to come to hear the presentations from the AP and UAFC opposition in respect of this national budget. Guyana is at perhaps again one of its most propitious moments in its development. Its most propitious moments in its development. And the vision of the PPPC in government, based on our national motto too, and taking into account the challenges we face over the time that the AP and UAFC was in government, and taking account of what we need to do to carry this country forward. He speaks and we speak of one Guyana. We speak of one Guyana. And we know that we will not fail in this mission. And no person, in fact I could even go biblical, no weapon formed against us will prosper in this mission. None. No weapon formed against us in the mission of one Guyana will fail. Mr. Speaker, the presentations again suggest that I don't want to say that perhaps the AP and UAFC have again lost their minds. I don't want to suggest so much so that we're getting responses from people who are suffering from schizophrenia, paranoia, jealousy. This is what their presentations have been about. And I say again that these presentations from the AP and UAFC are disgraceful. Disgraceful presentations on the floor of this honorable House. But again, it is their standard mode of operation. Going along with, and again they have the young brigade parroting what they say, going along with their disgraceful attempts of stealing the, well, let me say suborn, and I withdraw the word disgraceful, undermining our democracy, attempting to do things which a former prime minister of a country, of another country, spoke of a sanctimonious gangster, who was the leader of that party.
Honorable Minister, I was checking for disgraceful. I didn't see it, but I also won't allow it. But gangster and criminals are not allowed. Even if you're quoting, you can't quote an unparliamentary Honorable Manichan word in the House. I will stop allowing.
Mr. Speaker, unlike all before who said they were guided, I am actually withdrawing those remarks.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the facts are well known in relation to the difficulties we've had in terms of restoring democracy to our country, in restoring lawful authority and governments to our country, in preventing a situation where we would have lost proper accountability and governance of our country. And hearing the presentations here again suggests that we perhaps will never have an engagement where there will be rational presentations, we will have a rational discourse based on facts, not alternative facts, or, I don't want to say that word, not on alternative facts, but on contrived truths in relation to the development of our country, the performance and intent of our government in power now, the PPPC, and in relation to coming together in a national mission to make our country whole, our people safe and secure, and that we move deliberately and quickly on the path towards peace, prosperity, and further development. Mr. Speaker, I don't believe I'll have enough time, and I'll have to take additional opportunities elsewhere to answer the load of inaccuracies, the monstrous statements which were made in relation simply to the development of our country, but also in relation to the overall question of governance in our country. I don't want to spend too much time on the record of the APNU AFC in government. And if I follow the statements made by the Honorable Member David Patterson just now, I would need much more time. But what I want to say is, as was said before, in respect of energy, in respect of oil and gas, it was developed over a number of years by the PPPC in government. Janet Jagan, who they excoriated, who they were beating dollies on the road in front of the office of the president, signed the first agreement with ExxonMobil, with Esso Exploration. And I believe I, as Commissioner of Geology and Mines, signed that document alongside her. Excellent. Now we have all kinds of experts here on oil and gas and energy and development. And when we were out there shooting seismics in the ocean and exploring the interior for oil and other minerals, we didn't have any interest in it, but we got all kind of experts on the other side now. When we did all of those things, there was no interest in it. There was criticism. When we brought up budget in the first time when the APNU AFC, I think they had a majority of one, they signed, they refused to accept a national budget. Again, a national. It simply states, signed, they refused to accept a national budget. Again, a national. It simply states that too many development occur in our country. And the Honourable Member David Patterson just spoke. True. And he has perhaps to vindicate all of the things he undertook in respect, not only in respect of the signing of agreements for oil and gas along with another minister who was, previous minister who was here, but also in respect of the Myler Falls project. Nor consult supported the continuation development of the Myler Falls hydropower project. We have the documents. He says he will lead, that is Honorable Member Patterson, he will lay his own easy over. But we need to read them properly to understand what is being said in those documents. But, Mr. Speaker, the development pathway, the development in our country was largely interrupted under the stewardship of the APNU-AFC in government. They talk about employment for all Guyanese all over. Imposing VAT and other imposts on the people. They fired, I think, 1,200 young Amerindian people. 972. 1972 young Amerindian people, community development workers, all over Guyana. Mr. Speaker, our Amerindian people live the most precarious lives in Guyana. Our Amerindian people need the most support in terms of their development. And it angers and upsets me when people stand up and talk here about what they do and what they intend to do and what they should have done in respect of the Amerindian people. Mr. Speaker, what about the other people? What about the sugar? What about protecting rice during their time in office? The first thing they did was to knock off 7,000 sugar workers of all colors and stripes and races and ethnicities and religions in Guyana. An export project, and each one of those persons who was fired had 7 to 10 persons whom they had to support in the sugar belt. 70,000 people affected by the fallout onto the bread line. And here they talk about workers, the working class, and they talk about the Skeldon Sugar Factory. They talk about sugar, an export product for Guyana, and which had to do so much with the development of the country. Not to mention rice, where they promise $9 and $10 and $50,000 in Essequibo for a bag of paddy. And they talk about buying votes. Impossible in any place. And then when they took over, the rice collapsed. And then we sold some rice, and the people couldn't get paid for the rice. And they worry about and talk about the working class and the working people and all of that thing. They took away the APNU-AFC, took away the cash grants to children in this country, take money out of picnic them up. That's what they did. Now that we have increased it, they talk about how much more these things should go up and so on. And we talk about sanctimonious. Mr. Speaker, it was just said, Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you how much they really love people. They encourage the blocking of the river at Hururu, near Kokwani, related to Rusal. It was said by Minister Bikram. And, sir, it resulted 700 people losing their jobs, prime workers in their prime, the loss of product for shipment, for income to the country, and another 300 or more at New Amsterdam. And they said they lost people. And I don't think I need to have to say what race or ethnicity those people are. They talk about how they love Region 10. And honorable member, by convention of the House, of course, David Patterson comes in here and says, excoriate again, to justify, to vindicate the positions that the AFP and the AFC took on the Milo Falls project, took the position again to denigrate the project. But Mr. Speaker, the Milo Falls project was designed to bring 165 megawatts of clean power to the first town at a port in Guyana, which was the port of Linden. It would have provided the opportunity for the rejuvenation, the reduction in the cost of power for industry in Linden. It would have provided the opportunity for us to bring back larger stripping machines into the area and also to open up a new 1,200,000 ton alumina plant. That is what the Milo Falls project was ultimately intended to do. Reduce power by half and bring back large industrial capacity in Linden. But their honorable member, Patterson, would stand here again and excoriate the project. Pull it down. Pull it down. And so it was no strange thing that when they were in power, that the visiting committees from Norway and other places evinced that there was no government support from the APNU AFC for the Milo Falls project. And that the Milo Falls project was a precursor to a Tortuga project, which would have been bringing 950,000 megawatts of power into the country to reduce power, clean power completely. Mr. Speaker, I will not go into who built what and who built what. I know that we did the West Coast Road. I know that we did the East Coast Road. They took it over while it was being done. I know that the bypass project, Ogle, and the other places were conceptualized by us. I know that the government of India had given us money for that bypass road project, and it was never used. I know that the money for the new faster ferry to the Northwest District was there to be used, and they never used it. Never used it. The Honorable Minister, Bishop Edgell, stated that the ferry will come here just now, bringing relief to the people in the Northwest District and to bring back the Northwest District area to a place which will export food back to the capital city, to the rest of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, the honorable members of the AP and UFC speak about the temporary rise in the cost of living. The honorable members talk about the prices of things in border market, and I would think that any challenges, any rise in prices suggests opportunity. And when people talk about Bora and Baji and Baksha and these things, maybe you should get your people to go and plan some of these things to take advantage of the opportunity of earning an income, of reducing prices and making everyone else happy with respect to the situation. But that is what will happen. But I remember when they took over at that settlement, they sent teams of people to come shallow beds, to come people shallow beds. And to say you have to pay so much taxes from these shallow beds, they went into people's gardens. And some people got angry and they dug up the shallot and threw it away, some of it. This is how they love people. And Mr. Speaker, the former president of Guyana in the last dispensation went to a village on the East Coast where a young lady did fantastically well at CXC and said that the place where they mined the gold was great for them, but it don't know. And there was a visible gasp in the room. Visible gasp in the room. And it resulted in persons from Anse Grove not going back to re-engage in the fields. And it resulted in persons, just after they took over, coming into the city and other places, going into people's shops, taking away people's stuff, and telling them, Grain just send them fit. Grain just send them fit. They stole people things at the markets in Robb Street and Regent Street. And they wonder about the question of collapse and the problem of youth and the problem that we have in bringing back our society to a question where we would all be safe. Mr. Speaker, I want to remind the honorable member that I'm a geologist by profession, and I am legally and lawfully and professionally required to carry a hammer. Mr. Speaker, yes, let's talk about public security. Let's talk about public security. Mr. Speaker, yes, and Mr. Speaker, the honorable member, Ms. Geeta Chandan, in her delivery yesterday, said, excellent, that's why I'm coming back to it, said that people are being choked and robbed every second. Every second. Mr. Speaker, the simplest of probability would mean that as a female, the honorable member Geeta Chandan Edmonds would have been robbed 54 times in 2022. Choked and robbed 54 times in 2022. Yeah, I'm reminded that numbers are not the strong point of the AP and EFC. But that's the kind of stuff that they bring to this floor of this house. Of course, crime is a serious problem. And since you're raising the issue of crime, I'll go to statistics. You don't want the statistics now? No. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the statistics are ours and theirs. The statistics are ours and theirs. And Mr. Speaker, robbery with violence in 2012, in 2015 rather, decreased. Decreased from 2017 it was 143. In 2022 it was 76. Mr. Speaker, burglary decreased from 177 in 2018 to 108. Break and enter and larceny reduced from 926 events to 496, almost by half. Mr. Speaker, the overall decrease in the crime statistics between 2015 and 2022 is a decrease of 20.6%. We have reduced total robbery, serious crime, murder and violence by average figures of 20%. And of course, it would not have been reduced or recognized in your day because you're busy with other things. And Mr. Speaker, and yes, I heard about firearm licenses. And I'm saying again on the floor of this House that I will review all of those licenses which the Honorable Member Comrade Rambratan signed off on in his period. Mr. Speaker, we have always drawn the link between political activity, crime, and violence. And an honorable member spoke before me on the floor here, said something which would otherwise be monstrous. The honorable member, she said that it's only when the PPPC is in government that school is born. A frank admission on the floor of the House. So, apparently at a political level, in our discourse and what we do, that there is a rational beneficiary of the burning down of schools in this country. A rational, logical beneficiary. It was admitted to at that podium over there this morning. Mr. Speaker, so it's not no use to come here and express platitudes about the burning down of schools and the fact that thousands of school children and teachers and the other facilitators are at their wits' end, particularly the Minister of Education, as to where to house the students, how to make sure they succeed at the exams, and all the other issues relating to the question of education. But we could understand why we have some of these problems. It has to do with the example given by some of us in this House. If people see on the TikTok or on videos a school teacher from St. Joseph High School chasing people with a cutlass. Chasing people with a cutlass. We now understand why the schoolgirls are fighting in St. Joseph High School. We now know. And then when at Mocha, people squat and take over and refuse for months to move from where development has to proceed for everyone, and where they were given the offer of a new house, they were given money to relocate, they were given other issues to facilitate that removal. They refused to move. They refused to move, and when you come and move them, and they fight it with the police with a cutlass, and ultimately they're fired, everyone is up in arms about the matter. But criminal behavior is criminal behavior, it doesn't matter where it comes from.
On that note, Honorable Minister, I'll strike criminal, but we'll need an extension to continue.
Mr. Speaker, I would love my colleague to speak for a very long time. I therefore seek additional time for him to conclude his presentation.
Thank you, Minister Teixeira. Honorable Minister, you will have another 5 minutes uninterrupted to conclude.
Time could not, given the issues I had to particularly deal with, to deal comprehensively with the issues of crime and violence. I've said that it has reduced. I'm saying that it has a lot to do with our support to the Guyana Police Force, with the provision of new vehicles, with new training, with new efforts in respect of crime and violence and the prevention and mitigation of that. I have said before that our approach now is a more empathetic approach, that we have taken the results here on the floor of this assembly to take less lethal resorts in the engagement between the police and the public. I am identifying that in respect of the Guyana Fire Service just recently and even now, we're working on bringing in, other than those which we brought in last year, 7 new fire assets to fight fires, along with 3 modern ambulances. We are talking largely over the country that we are pursuing a program called Increase the Peace. Increase the Peace, falling about the Citizen Security Strengthening Program, which started under Clement Roy to increase peace in Guyana. But the first place peace has to be increased is on the floor of this Honorable House. Mr. Speaker, we have had dramatic increases in the seizures of narcotics based on the work of the Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit. We have had more arrests done in respect of illegal, lawful activity. We have had, and I have to admit it, that we have had a tremendous increase in the prison population over the period by some 14%, 2,156. Presumably mostly bad people in the prisons. We're talking about putting in, with the new prison infrastructure that we're building at Lusiknan, a school, a health center, a new women's prison. We're talking about having education for them. We're talking about a release program called Fresh Start to enable them to move to gainful employment, re-engagement, rehabilitation with the society and with their families. We will do these things. Mr. Speaker, we identify again, that the problems subconsciously engendered in some people's minds in respect to lawless behavior, to not pursuing ambitious issues in personal self-development, has to do with political messaging of a negative kind. We say, and I asked before, that honorable members of the House of the APNU-AFC separate themselves, disavow the remarks made by a certain person in New Jersey, on whose stage some members of the APNU-AFC were. They made presentation this year, where it was said, Georgetown must run down if PPC doesn't come out of office. I want the honorable member Raj Natan, as a leader remaining here, I don't see the rest, disavow those remarks, separate himself and his organization from, you must stand up and say it here in this house. Because if schools are burned, if public property is burned down, whose taxes, whose monies, whose effort over the years, whose children are inconvenienced? It is all of ours. Yes, we agree on that. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'll give away if Mr. Speaker, I'll give away if the honorable member will disavow.
Violence and destruction of schools. You could write it for me and I will certainly deliver it. Yes. It is.
With due respect to two of my long-standing colleagues, I will allow that exchange, which you guys didn't give me a chance to say yes or no to. And it will be in the record. Thank you, Honorable Kemraj, for that statement. Honorable, you get back your time.
Thank you,
Honorable
Mr.
Minister,
Speaker.
please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the Honorable Member Kemraj Ramjatan for that specific statement, which is now in the Hansard. And I want him to make sure that he maintains that posture, that attitude, and that he spreads the message with those whom his organization relates.
All five of them.
All of them.
All five of them.
That this message is spread.
All five of them.
Mr. Speaker, I want to close on one particular point in terms of the overall aspect of how we develop our country and the Parliament. Mr. Speaker, many years ago, even when the political debate was protracted, dangerous even, there was a shining moment where the two political leaders of Guyana, Burnham and Jagan, had a tryst, a discussion, an agreement on a certain measure. And Mr. Speaker, that was to allow troops from a certain country to land in Guyana, to be refueled, and to fly to Angola and Mozambique, to pursue the eventual successful fight against apartheid. A single important and precious memory in the history of our country. And Mr. Speaker, it grieves me thinking of those things, that persons would stand up here in this house from the APNU-AFC and say that Guyana is an apartheid state. Something was codified in the laws of the Boer Republic of South Africa. Something that volunteers from Cuba went to fight.
It's an insult to the real victims of
so that Southern Africa is free today.
and we assisted in the initial response to fight against the apartheid regime in South Africa when they invaded Angola. So, I like to say, you know, when I was a little fella, I used to write on a slate, and I am sure Ramjitan and others too used to write on a slate. And people who would jump up and say, he's still honorable. He's even more honorable today. That an apartheid state, you could Google it. You don't have a slate to read. You could Google Wikipedia and see what apartheid means. And I am amazed that in this day and age, that people who have the benefit of Google and who could get instantaneous information will stand up on the floor of his house and say that Guyana is an apartheid state. It's an insult to the memory of the people who fought, an insult to Mandela, insult to all of those who fought in Southern Africa for the freedom of those countries, an insult to the memory of our Guyanese who supported the position to allow those troops to go. And some Guyanese even went there, and a few died. Insult to their memory. So, Mr. Speaker, if the members on the other side want to know how the battles for the liberation of Southern Africa, the release of Mandela, or the Battle of Cuito Caravali was won, they must Google it. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Ben. Honorable members, this is a good time to take the suspension.